Hello friends, how are you all doing today? I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. My name is Foundthe, and today is a beautiful day, which means it's a day for true stories and real crimes. In this program, I'll be discussing exciting stories that have been on my mind and that I hope will pique your interest as well. If you're interested in the world of true crimes and enjoy hearing thrilling facts, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Let's begin our journey together. Today we're going to talk about a disturbing and dark story, and I want to issue a warning. Everyone dies. Have you ever gone to a doctor and thought you were important to him? Well, I haven't experienced that, because I suffered with Kaiser. But what if that kind doctor who knows your name is actually a killer? We'll be talking about Harold Sheeman, better known as Dr. Death, one of the most notorious serial killers. Harold was born on January 14, 1946, in Nottingham, England. He was a middle-class child, but things took a turn for the worse when his mother, Vera, was diagnosed with incurable lung cancer when he was 17. Harold watched his mother suffer, and her doctor would come to the house to give her morphine injections to ease her pain. This experience had a profound impact on him, as he became fascinated by what doctors do, a fascination that would play a significant role in his future. Harold decided he wanted to pursue medicine, so at the age of 19, he enrolled at the University of Leeds to become a doctor. During this time, he began dating a girl named Primrose Oxtop, who worked in a shop. Primrose soon became pregnant, and Harold married her before the birth of their first child, Sarah. They later had another son, Christopher. Harold graduated from medical school in 1970 and began working at Foundthe General Hospital. There, things began to look suspicious. Some noticed that a number of patients were dying unusually, often when Harold was working night shifts. Although his colleagues liked him for his helpfulness and concern for the patients, some began to suspect his behavior. In 1998, after his crimes were exposed, a court held an inquest to investigate what Harold had done and how he had managed to get away with it for so long. It took more than 4 years to gather 270,000 pages of evidence and 3,000 witness testimonies, resulting in what is now known as the Sherman Inquiry. Harold continued working at the hospital to complete his studies in pediatrics and also as an obstetrician-gynecologist, raising questions about a potential conflict of interest, especially since he was a man working in that field. Harold Sheeman used pethidine, also known as Demerol, as a painkiller during childbirth. While working in the obstetrics department, he began injecting himself with the substance and became addicted. Demerol gave him a feeling of euphoria, and Harold became fascinated by the power a doctor could exert with a needle. He began experimenting with the drug on patients who were near death. It is believed that Harold caused the deaths of approximately 24 patients during his 3.5 years at the hospital. After becoming a board-certified physician, he left the hospital to become a junior partner in a busier medical practice in a town called Todmorden, which means death in Germanic. At Todmorden, Harold impressed his colleagues because he performed tasks that others were unwilling to do, such as cleaning the medicine cabinets. He demonstrated a commitment to patient care, even making home visits, which endeared him to his patients, especially elderly women living alone. These women admired his personality and humor, and he spent time with them, making him seem like a friendly neighborhood doctor. Harold was well liked by his patients, who would give him small gifts at Christmas. However, a strange pattern emerged in his victims' records. Deaths occurred around Christmas. It seemed Harold was trying to ruin Christmas for everyone. About a year after he moved to Todmorden, authorities began noticing that Harold was obtaining large quantities of Demerol from local pharmacies. When the police questioned the pharmacists, they confirmed that Harold was a highly regarded doctor in the city, leading them to rule out drug abuse. However, things began to unravel when his business associates discovered that the prescribed amounts of Demerol did not match the records. When Harold's associates confronted him about the discrepancy in the records, he admitted to using Demerol, which led to the police being notified. Harold confessed to being addicted to Demerol for 18 months, taking up to 700 milligrams daily. After his arrest, his lawyer advised him to enter a rehabilitation program to demonstrate his willingness to seek help. Harold entered a rehabilitation center known as Retreat for 90 days. During his rehab, police visited him to monitor his condition. He was then formally arrested and his trial began, during which he submitted a written statement explaining everything he had done, except for the murder. Harold Sheeman was charged with drug possession and pleaded guilty to 8 drug-related charges and 1 count of prescription fraud. He was fined the equivalent of approximately $5,000 at the time. The General Medical Council was supposed to decide whether to revoke his license, but they decided to allow him to continue practicing medicine without restrictions, raising questions about how this could have happened. Harold moved to Hyde and joined a new medical group, resuming his work as a general practitioner. However, things were going disastrously. He continued to visit his patients, mostly elderly women, and interact with them kindly, only to murder them afterward. Harold was adept at concealing his crimes. He forged death certificates to show that the victims had died of natural causes, thus avoiding autopsies. He used morphine and demorphine, the equivalent of heroin, to kill his victims. In August alone, he murdered 4 patients, which went unnoticed because they were all elderly. Harold Sheeman exploited the deaths of his patients by persuading their families to cremate the bodies, thus eliminating any evidence against him. He spent approximately 14 years at the Donnybrook Medical Group, during which time he is believed to have committed 71 murders, in addition to 30 other deaths considered connected to him but for which there is no conclusive evidence. Sheeman frequently prescribed painkillers to cancer patients, then stole some of these medications for his own use. After a patient was declared dead, he would go to their home to collect any remaining medication, pretending to do so for the family. He primarily targeted elderly women living alone, and there were no sexual motives behind his crimes. Sheeman would visit his victims twice on the day of the murder, administering a lethal injection, and then return later to feign discovering the body. When a body was discovered by a family member, Sheeman, as the attending physician, would rush to the scene and handle the administrative procedures to ensure that no autopsy was performed. He was falsifying death certificates, making it appear that the victims had died of natural causes, even though they were dying from drug overdoses. Many of his patients died of heart attacks despite having no medical history to explain it. One elderly man came to see Harold for a cold, and another woman complained of a runny nose. Both died suddenly. The number of Harold Sheeman's victims grew into the hundreds, with 215 confirmed cases, but experts believe the figure could be as high as 300. Strangely, no one questioned why so many of his patients died, as most were elderly. Harold had a charismatic personality and was a doctor, which instilled trust in people. Some members of the community, such as funeral directors, began to notice that the death rate among Harold's patients was unusually high. A female doctor working at a nearby clinic raised concerns about the number of cremation requests she was receiving. She was particularly worried about the large number of elderly women who had died. As these concerns grew, the authorities decided to open an investigation. However, the police closed the case after about a month due to a lack of evidence. Without checking Harold's criminal record or contacting the General Medical Council, Harold continued his criminal activities until 1998, when they finally came to an end. At that time, 81-year-old Kathleen Grundy, who was in good health, was Harold's latest victim. Kathleen Grundy, 81, was an active and healthy woman who walked approximately 5 miles every day. On June 24, 1998, Harold suggested she participate in a study on aging and asked her to sign a consent form, which was actually a will making him the sole beneficiary of her estate. After Harold signed the form, he visited Kathleen at her home to take a blood sample. Later that day, she was found dead on the sofa. Harold stated on her death certificate that she died of old age, making no mention of his earlier visit. After Kathleen's funeral, her daughter, Angela, discovered that her mother's will had been altered 2 weeks before her death. This led to a police investigation, and Kathleen's body was exhumed. A lethal dose of morphine was found in her system. Investigators began to uncover details of Harold's crimes, searching his office and finding falsified medical records and a large quantity of morphine. Harold was arrested and charged with 15 murders. Videos of Harold being questioned by police can be found on YouTube. In these videos, he calmly denies everything, making it difficult for viewers to cope with his composure and apparent indifference to the evidence against him. During questioning, Harold Sheeman displayed signs of boredom and apathy. Even when shown photographs of his victims, he showed no empathy or interest. He refused to cooperate with investigators and remained remarkably quiet, making it difficult for them to elicit any confessions. During his trial, Harold remained completely unconcerned and denied all the charges against him. His family, including his wife Primrose and their children, attended to support him. On January 31, 2000, Harold was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life imprisonment. He then committed suicide in his cell in 2004, the day before his 58th birthday, suggesting he had planned it to ensure his wife received the maximum pension benefits. Many questions remained unanswered after the Sheeman investigation concluded, particularly regarding his motives. Some wondered if Harold was addicted to killing, or if his early experiences with his mother's death had influenced him. He had a morphine addiction, which may have contributed to his murderous behavior. The investigation suggests that his victims may number as many as 300, with 218 confirmed cases. Most of his victims were elderly women, killed by lethal doses of the drug. Much remains shrouded in mystery about Harold's personal life, especially his family and his wife, Primrose, about whom little is known after the incident. The question of his motives and his desire to kill remains unanswered, making his story one of the most enigmatic and intriguing serial killer cases. It has been debated whether Harold schemed and convinced himself that he was alleviating the suffering of his patients, even though he was killing healthy people. It seems he enjoyed watching people die. When the news broke, townspeople pointed out that Harold was nicknamed Dick or Death because it was believed that anyone who saw him ended up dying. This nickname was initially thought to be a joke, but after the facts came to light, it became clear that it was accurate. It was suggested that there might be other doctors like Harold Sherman, raising concerns about the safety of healthcare. The video ends. The host encouraged viewers to leave their opinions in the comments section and expressed hope that they would offer tips on how to identify bad doctors. She concluded by wishing everyone a good day and mentioning that she would see them in the next video.